What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be doing a card review segment, taking a look at some of the new cards that have been announced over the past week. I don't think I have all of them here because some were a little bit less exciting than others, so I tried to focus on some of the more noteworthy stuff, and I think maybe we do a live next, we'll recap everything else and just try to get some reactions to it. But obviously, when a lot of cards come out, it's just not always feasible to sit there and go through and do a full detailed video on them all at once, and I didn't want to post 6 different videos today, so that was the rationale behind that. Today was supposed to actually be the Shark deck profile combo tutorial and test hands. That's been pushed to Friday. I just had a bit of an issue come up trying to film with my camera, and to spare you the full details and everything, I just thought it'd be best to push it back. But people have been asking about that, and I'm going to be posting it on Friday, so full sort of test hands, combo tutorial and stuff for the updated Shark build will be Friday's video. Stay tuned for that if you guys were interested. But let's jump into today's video and take a look at some of the new cards. We've got Witchcrafter cards from the special box coming out in the OCG that also has Sky Striker and Mayakashi support. And then we've got some new zombie cards from one of the new Duelist packs. I believe it's the Shark Duelist pack, but I'm not entirely sure. They're all pretty exciting, but I think Witchcrafter is a fan favorite archetype people really like, and these cards seem to be pretty good. I just don't know whether or not they're going to be enough to sort of push it over the top. Let's see what you guys think when we're done reviewing them. Before we get started, though, just want to ask to like the video if you do enjoy it, and hit the subscribe button to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. 85% of the people who watch the videos aren't subscribed, so I don't know what you're doing, but we do giveaways, we do live streams, we have some fun here, so hit the sub button, and yeah, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about these cards, and whether or not you think they're going to be relevant or exciting, or how you feel about them as a whole. And let's actually get into the meat and potatoes of the video, starting off with Witchcrafter Vice Master. I will say, I didn't think a fusion was going to be the card that they gave Witchcrafter, because it seemed a little bit out of the blue, but I think it's actually a really strong card. So let's take a look at the effect. 1 Witchcrafter monster plus 1 Spellcaster monster. When a non-fusion Spellcaster monster's effect or a spell card or effect is activated, you can activate one of these effects. Quick effect. You can choose only one of these effects each per turn, so you can use them all once, but you can't use any singular effect more than one time. So, in other words, when a spell is activated or a non-fusion spellcaster effect is activated, you can destroy one card on the field, you can special summon a level 6 or lower Witchcrafter from your hand or deck, or you can add one Witchcrafter spell or trap from your graveyard to your hand. So the first thing that really sticks out to me is this card does a lot of things, obviously. It being able to pop stuff with non-targeting removal, being able to directly grab some of your Witchcrafters from the deck, and being able to get spells and traps back to the hand without having to wait till, the end phase to be able to do it with their own recurable effects, is definitely a neat slate of things. It's got a decent defense with 2800 and a solid attack with 27, and it's not super hard to make, especially with the new spell card that they got, although I do wish it had some type of built-in protection, at least in some capacity, because it is rather fragile, despite the fact that it can function as a disruption. I like it. I think it's pretty good for the deck, and depending on the fusion spell and how, applicable it is to actually get that going, I think it'll be a card people play. I don't think the activation conditions are all that crazy, especially because you can activate your own spell and then trigger this effect. You can get something like Genny directly from the deck, or Pitore, or any of the ones that are going to sort of help you get into combos. It's a really cool card, and I think it does help the archetype, but I don't think it's going to push anything over the top, so make of that what you will. Now, Witchcrafter Confusion is the spell. Some pretty cool artwork there. Fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material, including at least 1 Witchcrafter monster. During your end phase, if you control a Witchcrafter monster while this card is in your grave, you can add it to your hand. You can only use 1 Witchcrafter fusion effect per turn, and only once that turn. So it's quite literally just a generic fusion spell that requires you to use a Witchcrafter. It doesn't allow you to banish anything from grave or use anything from deck. It's rather lackluster on that front. I think the main selling point of this card is that it's searchable, and that it does have the ability to add itself back because it's a Witchcrafter card, but I don't think it needs to be a hard once per turn for activation purposes. I actually think that's a major restriction on it, because it's just a fusion spell. It's essentially polymerization. but, you know, with a bit more searchability and sort of interaction within the deck. It's definitely a bit of a letdown, especially considering some of the other fusion spells we've gotten recently, and even some of the fusion spells we've gotten in this same release of new cards, which we'll talk about in a minute with Ghost Fusion. But yeah, I have to say, this is kind of a disappointment. I guess because of how powerful the fusion monster is, you might consider playing this at 1 because of its searchability, but I think Magicalized Fusion might just be a straight up better card that allows you to essentially Miracle Fusion using your spellcaster's engrave, without the sort of drawback that comes along with this. I don't know, what do you guys think on this one? Does it seem like, am I being a little too harsh on it, or is it just kind of overall relatively lackluster in terms of the support that they are getting? Now, moving on to the zombie support, which was a little bit out of the blue, but kind of cool. These were released earlier last week. I just didn't get a chance to make a video talking about them, so here we are now. Hellfire Spearman Ghost Lancer is a level 5 dark zombie. If your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. Cannot be destroyed by battle except with a monster special summon from the extra deck. Inflicts piercing battle damage. So, it's a weaker Cyber Dragon. It does have the zombie typing and the dark attribute, which I suppose is fine, but it doesn't really count for much these days. It's a just kind of a card that I feel like doesn't need to exist in this day and age, and unless the rest of the zombie support directly interacts with it in some way, which from what I've seen, it doesn't. It's just kind of a card you're more than likely going to pass on in most cases. It might have been okay if it had the Link Slayer type effect, where you could special it if you didn't control a monster, but it didn't care what your opponent had. But since they didn't go in that direction, and this is instead just basically a weaker Cyber Dragon with a kind of a punitive battle protection effect, I think this is relatively pack filler and totally skippable, although it does have some really cool artwork, which is nice to see. Now, Hellfire Sleeping Beauty Ghost Sleeper is a bit better. Sort of see the Skull Servant Lady in White inspired artwork on this, which is cool. And the name is just pretty badass, although I'm sure they're going to dwindle that down when we get it over here in the TCG. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Ghost Fusion from your deck to your hand. During the main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your grave, and then discard 1 card. Add 1 of your level 4 or higher banished zombie monsters to your hand. You can only use each of these cards' effects once per turn. So, sent to the graveyard from anywhere is solid, being able to get Ghost Fusion. I definitely like that application, depending on Ghost Fusion's, utility and how effective it'll be, but it's really neat to see that they didn't add any unnecessary restrictions here, and being able to banish it from grave to get back like Mizuki or another zombie is a neat interaction, but the fact that you can't do it during the same turn it's sent is a little troublesome, especially because zombies typically, while they do have good resource recovery, you want to be able to make plays and not have to like just wait until next turn to be able to do something. In a lot of cases, that effect's going to be kind of slow, but I think depending on Ghost Fusion's utility and the fact that this is easily millable, getting access to Ghost Fusion could warrant play with this, and it's definitely a card to keep an eye on. We'll have to see whether or not people find ways to utilize it, though, as it gets imported onto simulators and whatnot going forward. Hellfire Dragon Ghost Wyvern, some amazing artwork on that guy. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 Ghost Fusion from your deck to your hand. During the end phase, if this card is currently banished and was banished this turn, you can take 1 level 2 or lower zombie tuner from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. You can only use each of these effects once per turn. First of all, that artwork is awesome. Second of all, it's cool to see more Wyvern cards, and it's funny that it sort of reminds me of Red Eyes Wyvern in a way, just based on the art style, and I don't know if there's any connection there. This is a level 3 zombie and is not a tuner, so there's no synergy there. I just wanted to double check as I'm going through and reacting to these here. The best targets that come to mind is Shiranui Spectral Sword or Plague Spreader Zombie. Being during the end phase is super slow in terms of like when you can actually utilize it, and I don't think there's any zombies that have like quick effects engraved that are gonna make this such that you can mill this and then on your opponent's turn do something. I could be wrong, I just don't know of any off the top of my head. But he's a really cool card in terms of being able to search Ghost Fusion, being a summonable monster. Again, it all really depends on Ghost Fusion's utility and whether or not we get some other zombie fusions that are good. I know Nether Soul Dragon is a pretty good card, but I also don't think Nether Soul Dragon is like inherently super powerful. I think Super Poly in a lot of cases is its main use in zombie decks, so it depends on what we get for fusion support. And Ghost Fusion, finally, is a normal spell. Fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using only zombies you control as material. If your life points are lower than your opponent, you can also banish 1 zombie monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard as material. So, first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is Verte. It is usable with that, but the problem that comes to mind here is the fact that you can only use zombies you control. So, obviously, if your life points are lower, you can banish 1, which is great, but a lot of zombies don't really benefit from being banished other than, like, the Shiranuis, which, yeah, there's some cute interaction there. But again, I come back to the fact that, like, what targets are you really, like, what are you making here? Like, unless you're playing some zombie world thing where you're fusing monsters on the board to make this, but at that point it just becomes a whole cluster of things, and it just feels like on the surface they wanted this card to be, like, not as abusable as some of the other fusion spells, but in doing so they watered it down way too much. Like, you should have been able to banish from grave regardless, I think, and it would have been balanced, especially being a hard once per turn and considering the lack of targets. But it is always exciting to see new support for zombies, and I do think this is something to keep an eye on. Being able to banish anything from the deck is neat, but I think we have to wait and see whether or not there's more zombie support coming, or fusions that would make it warranted to do this. Like, if they get a zombie fusion that, like, when it's summoned can shuffle a banished zombie back in and draw a card or something, then we could maybe talk about some application. But as it stands currently, as cool as the archetype looks, I don't think any of it's all that great. And as a result, I think it's overall a bit of a letdown for this latest wave of reveals for new cards. I'm sure Witchcrafter players are going to be happy about Vice Master. I do think it's a good card, but I don't think it's going to be game-breaking, and I really don't think it was the answer that they needed. So maybe I'm wrong on that. If you guys disagree, leave a comment down below, let me know. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you on Friday for the deck profile combo tutorial as promised. Until then, though, catch you guys next time. Peace.